Welcome to the Path to Wholeness. I'm Bethany Ward, a Jungian-oriented spiritual director and evidential medium. This podcast explores the art and practice of spiritual direction and what it means to live a life from the inside out. Today's conversation resides in a place some of us might know well, the terrain of grief. My guest is Kelly Edmondson. She is a nurse, a mother, and the founder of The Memory Box, a grief support service created after the death of her son, Darius. She is a newly certified grief counselor, and her work centers around what happens after the funeral, when time stretches on and love still needs a place to go. Kelly is also a friend from junior high. We took different paths, and yet here we are all these years later, meeting at the intersection of our work. I find that remarkable, and it feels like an honor to witness. This conversation explores grief as something we carry together, the work of presence over time, and the ways companionship might continue long after others move on. This episode is for those who are grieving and for those who walk alongside them. I'm glad you're here. Let's begin. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you for having me. And I have to say, this reconnection really feels like representative, I think, of both who we are and the work that we do. So relationships matter. Time is not a separator. And so it has felt like home in the few minutes since we've been back in one another's company. So thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Thank you for arriving in your whole heart and your whole spirit. And I echo every word. You know, there are just those people that you connect with throughout your life, whether you're 15 or 50, and they touch your heart and they stay.
That's right.
So welcome. So Kelly, with your wisdom and your grace, I'd love to start with just your story. When you think back to the early days after Darius died, what do you remember most about how life felt then?
Yes. You know, what's interesting is it really was two parallels, right? And so immediately after his death, my husband and I were actually on a cruise. And so it was just after the new year, we were on a cruise ship with thousands of people in celebration. And so we felt like we were in this parallel universe where we were anonymously grieving in a sea of joy. And so when we returned home, we were able to disembark and return home. The following months felt much the same. I felt as though in the immediate period, there was a lot of sympathy and empathy, and people give what they know that they are able to do. They give what they can. But people go back to living through no fault of their own. It's not that people don't care, but the reality is it's very difficult for people to understand. And so people are back and they begin sending you emails and texts and notification of life moving forward. And in that post phase, you're still very much stuck in your moment, in the notification. And so for a while, I lived in a parallel universe. And so I've spent my time and energy really figuring out how to help people navigate that space. The good news is there's a way back to fully functioning, but part of the process is living in that duality.
Mm-hmm. That language is so powerful to me about a parallel universe. I hear the disorientation in it. Mm-hmm. I hear the questioning about what is real, what mm-hmm. is reality. They're living one reality, those that are witnessing my grief, and I'm in an entirely different reality.
And it's exactly how it shows up, right? And it moves from a place, it evolves. So it moves from a place of shock, disbelief, questioning, to sadness. There's no way to escape the sadness, right? I've outlived my son, so that was the natural course of life, but certainly not normal. And then almost to a phase of numbness. What is life? what are choices, what do I love, how do I love, give, knowing the risk of love is pain. And so there are phases that you evolve to, thankfully, through time, love, support, and understanding. I've currently landed in a place where there's not a day that I don't know that I'm walking the earth, and my son's not in the same sphere of life that I am in. But I have learned to love through loss. And so I have joy, I have optimism, I have hope for tomorrow, while still recognizing there's a part of me that will always be different. And I've learned to be okay with that.
I think that is why it's so important to tell our stories of grief. Is I'm imagining individuals that I serve now that are grieving deeply, and imagining others that I've encountered through my work that don't have an orienting story of grief. Mm-hmm. And I heard you just lift up all of these big questions, and those emerge, and if you don't have a way to have those mirrored back, and you don't have a way to understand how to ask the question, you're stuck in that parallel reality. How do I move forward? How do I find love after loss? It seems impossible.
And for many people, I think they're afraid to ask the questions, right? And so I think people feel like they're questioning their religious positioning. They may be questioning, you may have a history of being the cheerleader in your group, the positive orientation, the optimist. If I ask these questions, who am I? Who is this new reality? And I think there's space for both. Mm-hmm. I think there's a space to say, my DNA has me wired as a person who's full of hope or resilience or joy, and I'm in a difficult place right now, and I need to be able to figure out who I am, how I have fidelity to who I am at the core, while honoring my new reality. Mm-hmm. And when you are able to figure out the answers to those things, you can show up as the new you, which is really the best version of who you were and who this new reality of who you are has transitioned into.
It's so profound, and that's why I think the conversation of grief needs to exist in the conversation around spiritual direction, because spiritual direction, part of what we're doing in the inner work is trying to answer the question of who am I as I understand myself to be, and then how do I live in the world, whether I have been profoundly affected by grief or I'm just a human trying to figure out how to human. And then grief enters that conversation and everything is disorienting. And how do I find center? How do I find the next right step?
I've now become a member of a club that no one intends to join. And I've met many mothers who have faced this loss, right? And this isn't to minimize any loss, right? I meet people who have lost pets. It's changed their lives. People who have become orphans at very young ages. People that have become widowed after months or decades of communion. And all of those losses are significant and devastating. But there's a uniqueness to losing a child. And so I have joined a club, a committee with like mothers, and all of their stories of how they evolved have similarities and significant differences. Some of the similarities, I think, are recognizing who I am is not who I was. So there's a grief and of grieving who I used to be, right? Just recognizing life will never go back to where it was. And I really think that's the first step. You have to be real with yourself and recognize that you're different. the second thing that you have to realize is that you are grieving things that you haven't even realized yet, right? And so when Darius initially passed away, of course, I miss him as a son and as that current presence. But the things you think about later are, I will never meet his wife. I'll never meet these children he never had, right? So I am grieving things that I didn't even have time or space to think of in the immediacy. And you have to be prepared that there will be moments later where his very best friend was married recently. Recently this year he was married, and beautiful, beautiful. So happy to see that Charles and his wife have gone on to this next phase. But it is a sudden reminder that Darius never gets that, right? So you begin preparing yourselves for these many bereavement episodes that are yet to come in your life. The third thing is you find people who will let you grieve out loud. I need to say his name. And it makes people uncomfortable sometimes. And, when I tell people my story, I still to this day feel the need to preface it with, this is going to start sad, but it ends beautifully. Because I have to prep people who immediately have discomfort and want to shut down. And the story of this is a bereaved mother. And so you have to figure out your network where it's safe to say, I'm having a crummy day. All right, today stinks. Or when you want to laugh. So Darius was not a perfect person. and part of the grieving is realizing that too, the people that you love that are missing are flawed. And when you're able to begin laughing at their flaws and remembering them really, you are catapulting your healing. This wasn't an angelic being he was a real person who came with all the beauty that we come with humanity. And when I began to be able to laugh at all of the things that frustrated us in real life and caused stressors and hiccups in our relationship, I made him real. And in real life, people come in and out of your world, right? In real life, that's what happened. And so as I began remembering him as a human entity, the humanity of loss had space to come in. And so those are just some of the things that I've done. And I found that mothers who have healed with me have all in some way realize some version of those things also.
All of it is so profound. What is striking me is one of the conversations I wanted to have as we moved on was, how do we companion those who are grieving? How do therapists do it? How do spiritual directors, how do friends witness the griever? And then I just heard emerging that you were companioning those who were curious in their pursuit of companioning you. You're prefacing, you're empowering, you're educating. So you are in this dual role of companioning and being companioned as well. And what I'm amazed by is not only your insight and your profundity, but how you were able to continually stretch into a new container over and over and over again, and how your grief asked you to do that. I'm just going to stretch a little bit more into a new understanding.
I have this problem. I'm a fixer.
I'm the same heart. I understand.
Right. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a leader. I'm a nurse. I fix things. And so, some of us have unique roles. We're learning people is a part of how we navigate. And so I guess I've had the added experience of learning how to engage people in difficult conversations around many things. A big part of my journey has been, even for myself as a nurse who thought she got it, people don't understand grief. They don't understand. And one of my favorite lines is that support should outlast sympathy, right? Grief outlasts sympathy. People immediately recognize this is terrible, such a profound loss. I'm so sorry. And without thinking, within a few weeks, they are expecting you to begin reemerging as the way they knew you, right? Because you're still very much their person in whatever capacity you were. And so they're expecting you to emerge. And a part of the work for all of us now who are dedicated to grief is helping people understand that grief is not an event, right? It is not, it's not something that, the funeral's an event. Grief is a journey. And it goes on for years and decades and most likely a lifetime. And people don't understand that. How I grieve shouldn't look the same 2 days after the funeral as 2 years after the funeral. But the fact that I grieve the loss of someone significant in my life should still be honored and respected. And so my calling, I really believe, is in helping people learn how to take that journey with the ones you love. And there are days, there are moments that we can almost predict will be more emotionally charged than others. And so how do we build a framework, a process, a caring network that helps people meet them where they are?
Yeah, there's a fortuitousness of spirit that I'm hearing, that you really need to know yourself, have a dialogue with yourself, reserve time and space to have that conversation with the deeper elements of yourself, and then the strength and the courage to still reach across to another and be honest. That takes so much self-awareness. And so again, the grief journey is inviting us to deeper reflection and deeper contemplation of who we are and how we're navigating the world.
That's right. This is work.
It is.
This is work,
it
right? Is. And there will be hiccups along the way, but if we take our time, and this recalls early. Before I had returned to work after Darius had passed away, a couple of colleagues had called me and they said, we have planned a date night. We have planned a date night with you, and we want to take you to dinner and get a couple cocktails, and we're going to take you to a comedy show. And they called me on a Monday and said, this is our Friday plan. So on Monday it sounded great.
Monday I am today.
And on Tuesday, it still sounded pretty good. By Wednesday, it was stressful, right? By Wednesday, I'm not sure I can show up that way. On Thursday, I felt guilty because I have these people who have cared so much about me that I somehow have to rally and show up. And on Friday, an hour before we were to show, I didn't call. I sent a text message and I said, I can't. And I will not forget, my colleague called back and said, and that is perfectly okay. And we will go for you. And we will hold you up the entire time that we're there. And the next day, I received a care package of food, and it was the weekend, some soup, and we understand this weekend is tough, and we are thinking of you. But having the courage to want to dig in, right? My intentions on Monday were I am ready. But the courage on Friday to say that I can't, and the relationships that allowed me the space to be able to do that reinforced that I had picked the right people to be in my corner all along. And to this day, that continues to be true, right? There are many more days where I can show up. But if there's a day, if there's a Christmas event that I can't, I am honest. I am not, I'm not guilting people for the invitation, for being happy, for me, right? It is simply, I am excusing myself from this, a brief explanation of why, and trust that continues to be reinforced within my circle. They trust me to tell when I can't, and I trust them to receive that. And that has made bonders stronger, friendships deeper, and has allowed healing to really improve. And if there's anyone who can't accept that, they're out the circle, right? They're out of the circle.
Mm-hmm. And presence over fixing.
That's
in
right.
The story that you were sharing, that presence was enough. No one needed to fix your grief.
That's
no
right.
one needed to fix you. You didn't need to fix your grief. You named yourself as a fixer, but in this moment, there's nothing to fix.
That's
There's
right.
just an invitation to be present to what is.
That's right.
And can you meet me there? And I'm thinking about how universal that experience is. It isn't always relegated to the grief experience. It's also just, can we show up in our wholeness and our honesty, trust ourselves and trust those that we're in relationship with to meet us. That right there is profound and life-altering.
We say all the time at the Memory Box, presence is the greatest gift. Right? Presence is the present.
Yeah.
Right?
No, presence is the present.
And how that shows up is in many ways. And in some ways it is the text that says, it's his birthday, I'm thinking of you. Right? And it shows up as the unexpected card. It shows up as we are going to plan an activity on a day that's going to be different. And sometimes it is, you get out. You get no explanation necessary, right? But it's really the recognition that for you, life is a little different now than it was. So whatever I can do as your person, your boss, your spouse, your sibling, your friend, whatever I can do as your person to make navigating that a little easier, sign me up. And I have been astounded how when you tell people, I just need you. I just need you to know that I'm still going through this. People are brilliant. They show up in ways that you can't even imagine.
I'm imagining, in my own imagination, I'm seeing that you are giving them that invitation, you are giving them that opportunity, you are giving them that realness and that honesty of, no, we're going to be this in this together, and let's be honest and let's be real. And there used to be an expression when I was in end-of-life care and doing green burial about not knowing what to do with our hands. Like, I just don't know what to do with my hands. And we would say that's often why we invite families to participate in the burial itself, because it gives the body something to do. But when you don't know what to do with your hands and you want to companion someone who is grieving, there's an awkwardness. I want to help. I don't know how to help. But you are giving this grace and this mercy and this self-compassion to yourself, and that is the cue of, oh, this is how I companion you. I know what to do with my hands. And then people do rise. They do, and it's this beautiful quality in the human experience when you say, this is where I need you to meet me. They will rise. But until then, oftentimes they just don't know what to do with their hands.
They don't. And people say that I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. And the response is, that was never the charge. Me either. Right? All of us are navigating this. A hug is 1,000,000 words in 10 seconds, right? A thinking of you text is a novel in a few words. And we have to give people the grace to say, this is new. You experiencing this me is new for you too, right? And so, you think back as your children are growing up, and A for effort, right? The attempt matters. The attempt to support me. All the words might not be right. All the efforts might not be aligned with what the textbooks say, but the attempt, the effort, the intent matters much more than the outcome of the intent is what you're seeking. And I think that's what people who are looking to support the bereaved have to understand. I just needed to know that you cared. I just needed to know that you cared. And that might not be packaged perfectly. Guess what? I'm a big, unperfectly packaged person myself. So I get that. Intent matters. Presence matters. And absence is deafening.
Yeah, well, we can inadvertently have that awkwardness turn into absence. That is sadly some choices that are made. And I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything.
That's right.
And it's better to do it clumsy and messy. And in that's our humanity. We're meeting each other human to human. I don't know, but I'm going to trip over my own shoelaces and show that I care.
That's right.
Even if I'm going to be awkward in the process. That's the beauty of the human process. So let's talk about the birth of the memory box. This is so moving to me. So the memory box is about timing as much as it is gifts. So why does timing matter so much in grief? And so maybe start a little bit with the memory box, and then why is it about timing, and then why does timing matter so much?
So when Darius passed away, he died in January. And died is an important word, though. I need to say that. Died is an important word. My son is dead. And people are jarred when you said that, but it's reality. It's not whimsical. It's not artful, but it's true. So he's not coming back to this reality, right? My son died January 3rd of 2023. And so he died just after the holiday season. His birthday is Christmas, so that entire season is different. The next significant holiday was Mother's Day. So between January and May, I received two things from our funeral home who did our services. We had him cremated. I wanted to create things from his ashes. And so I received two things from the funeral home. The first was a biohazard container that came with the remainder of his ashes.
Inorganic material.
Yeah, sterile. It was just a very sterile process. And the second was a letter that came in the mail, and it was shortly after I had returned to work, the week I returned to work, and I thought, they know it's been several months, I must be, And so I opened it with the thought that it would be this letter. And it was my son's ME autopsy report. My son had a seizure and died in his sleep, and it was the autopsy. So I thought, well, we can certainly do better than this, can't we? Certainly this can be a better experience. So we get to Mother's Day, and on Mother's Day, My family, I live in Florida, my family from Ohio, and I came down. My mom, my sister, my niece, my son's girlfriend, and my daughter, they all converged with like memories and stories and regalia around Darius. And it made what was one of the most difficult days. So we talked about this parallel universe. The world is celebrating, right? You open Facebook and everyone is, my three sons, right? Everyone is celebrating, and they should. They should. And you have this new day that is very different for you. And so what would have been a very dark day was colored with beauty by memories and recognition of this man that I love so much that's no longer here. And I realized in that moment that everyone needs this. And so while there were many days between January and May that were painful and tense, the acuteness of Mother's Day was different. It was unique, and it was in complete juxtaposition to what the rest of the world was celebrating. And so we really built the memory box with the idea that there are predictable, emotionally charged dates, right? Birthdays, wedding anniversaries, the holiday season, the anniversary of loss. And so our gift service sends customized gifts that really recognize your person. This isn't something off the shelf. This is your person, their name, their dates, their photos, in a beautiful tribute gift that lives, right? Part of the pain post-funerals are the flowers that die, the plants I couldn't keep alive, right? A whole new trauma. I actually had put ashes into plants that died, right? Double trauma. So these are heirloom quality gifts that live, but they're not reflective of death. They're full of life. They are wind chimes that sing in the wind. They are crystal sun catchers that reflect prisms of light over rooms, and crystal candle holders that are lights that remain. They're beautiful gifts that come on these emotionally charged dates because we know they're predictable. And they show up when you can't remember that this was June's wedding anniversary. You're busy in the holiday season. Are you thinking about your neighbor's loss of her husband? Those are difficult days for you to manage. And so we step in and we take care of the logistics on the back end that allow you to show up for your people on those dates that really matter, with gifts that are meaningful and recognize the love that lingers and the fact that grief is outlasts sympathy.
The love that lingers. You're reminding me of a husband who had lost his wife. So I served in green burial. Green burial is when we are not interrupting the natural decomposition of the body. We are burying them in these beautiful, lush conservation spaces. It's beautiful. And his wife had been buried at the cemetery that I was stewarding. And he had come to visit her. We were standing there together. We were standing in silence. And in that moment, this hawk flew overhead. And he just turned to me and he said, some things stay. This love that lingers, this memory box that just touches us at these moments, that some things do stay.
Love stays, remembrance stays. Memory is one of the most powerful tools we have, right? I don't have him, but I have the memories of him, the love of him, the stories. That's really what we lean into. It's what's left. And, my other son, Mason, and I have really worked to build this idea together. And the thing that we've talked about is, how do you make compassion tangible, right? How do you make it beyond the moment? And that's really what we've poured into them. This is a physical beautiful reminder of the love that remains, what's left behind. And over time, it becomes beauty. It just becomes beauty. It starts as pain. It ends in joy, right? It ends in a joy. So now, when someone tells a story about a thing that Darius did in high school, those stories are like joy to my heart, right? And there are things in my home, in my office, that I can look at that are reflective of this gift I received on Mother's Day. This is a reminder of the Mother's Day in 2002 when he... It's been a beautiful service, and I think it's offered a lot of support to the givers of the gift who didn't know what to do.
Who didn't know what to do with their hands, and yet intuited that some things stay and presence matters, and you've given them this beautiful mission and means to express those two things.
Presence matters.
Presence matters. That's so profound. So, one sec. What do you hope for the memory box?
Yeah, my hope is that we really emerge as the premier grief gift service, not a product, a service that allows those who don't know what to do with their hands, the people who want to care for the people that they love, to send love that lasts all year. We show up again and again and again in those moments that matter, because presence really is the best present.
So powerful, so meaningful, so needed, so necessary. And I'm so moved that it is not only for the receiver, but for the giver too. I am present to you, and I don't know that experience intimately, but I know enough of the human experience to meet you in it, and I love you enough to meet you in it. So you talked about grief being kind of a private suffering. I'm curious about what shared grief might look like in everyday life. What is shared grief?
Yeah. You know, I have a very dear friend, and we were friends when Darius died. And this experience has deepened that bond to almost a sister-like relationship. And one thing that she uniquely has done is intentionally walk this journey with me. And so there is never a day that I feel like I can't call and say, when Darius X, or I'm having a very cruddy day, or the memory box X, right? Because this entire labor of love has been built on keeping his legacy alive. And she has repeatedly and probably at times inconveniently made space for me to talk through my messy recovery. And I've never felt like I was burdening her, or that she wasn't present in those conversations. You can talk to someone who's not listening, right? And I've never felt that way with her. So connecting with someone who will make time matters. But for those of us who are interested in how can I be that person, availability matters, right? And certainly I can't give my life over to someone else. But intentionally making time to have coffee, a walk, a glass of wine, however it is that you show up, to allow the griever to set the agenda is really important, right? And sometimes the entire visit may need to be on their grieving process. Mm-hmm. It is their stage. It is their anger at the universe. Mm-hmm. It is the whys. Mm-hmm. It is sadness. It can be depression. It can be anxiety. All of these are it's the journey. But the presence to make space to allow them to lead the agenda, and often that means that you're just listening, you're not answering, you're not necessarily fixing for them, but you're present to hear. And then you're asking, is there something I can do? Is there a way that I can show up? And if it's yes, figuring out the balance on how to respond to the call. But it's often just you allowing me the space has made today lighter. Mm-hmm. We put a lot of burden on ourselves on how to fix things for the people that we love. And the reality is time is the largest healer. And so walking the journey with someone matters. And sometimes it will be uncomfortable. You will hear things that you weren't anticipating hearing. There will be questions or anger that you personally weren't anticipating, expecting. And listening without judgment, listening without questioning or reframing is sometimes very important. And over time, those conversations evolve. And the time may come where there's more dialogue, more cohesive solution finding and answer finding. But the patience to do that is important on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking about those who have been grieving, who have come into the container of spiritual direction, having had a traditional therapy experience. And what has been named is the lack of talking on my part. Our job as spiritual directors is largely presence. It's to hold that container. It's to breathe with and to walk alongside. And how meaningful just having the space to digest, listen to themselves, have someone witness them, is all that they are hungry for. Mm-hmm. Just listen. Mm-hmm. Just let me speak my loved one's name over and over. Let me tell you a story. And that welcoming space to be immersed and embody their grief is the hunger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes helping people answer difficult questions. A question that came after he died is, one day, very innocently, people ask questions. How many children do you have? It's very easy for me to answer now, right? I have 3. They're in different realms, but I have 3. But in that post-loss phase, acute post-loss phase, it's a very difficult question. Those are the kinds of things that you need space to be able to discuss and digest with someone who gives you the time to do that. Because the answer to that has to be mine. I had to create the answer to that, but the recognition that I had not even considered what a charged question that could be, right? Mm-hmm. The recognition that must have been incredibly difficult for you, right? And then the questions that came with, so how did you answer that? Mm-hmm. How did it make you feel, right? That dialogue helped me get to my answer today, which is, I have 3 children, right?
And that is also the role of a companion, is to just take us deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, just affirming that having someone invite the question and let you wrestle with it, and it's yours, and you are the one making the meaning from it, now I can take that and apply it in my everyday life because I've done the wrestling and I've been witnessed in that wrestling. What about communities? What would it look like for communities to stay present month after month, not just at the beginning?
Yeah. It's one of the things that I think about often. I love the community events around Blue Christmas, right? It's the end of the year and people get people together. I don't know that we think with the same intention around other big dates, right? Valentine's Day, it's a very commercial holiday, but it matters for many people. The intentional space to say there are many people every year who are experiencing that for the first time without their partner. How does that feel? What does that look like? Where's the discussion around that? Mother's Day and Father's Day are great opportunities to be able to do that. I met a dear mother whose son died in a tragic event on July 4th. That day looks very different. And so online communities that allow people the space to recognize today's difficult, this holiday's difficult is a great place to be. Many churches and healthcare organizations, they have big events that are annual remembrance, and annual remembrance is important, but we talk about this month after month after month. And so I think the acknowledgement of small groups of people experiencing similar loss, people who lose someone by suicide survivors, right? The people who survive losing someone through suicide. It's a unique loss. Allowing space for people in these groups to connect and share is so important. Similar to the grief that all experience, but also very unique. Death of children, for caregivers, people who have cared for someone who has passed away. You've lost a part of your innate role in life, right? And so these smaller groups, I think, offer even additional support. You are sharing stories with people who've had unique and even blended experiences yours. Gives you a place to be more vulnerable than you may be in a more broader shared setting. But in general, the more we can share that grief goes on. Grief lasts. It lasts. It's cyclic. It's multidimensional. It's weird. The more we can let people know that and normalize the sayings, the feelings that I am struggling today. I need a mental health day. I need a mental health day from this relationship, from this task, from this space, because I'm not doing well today. The more space that we create for people to do that, the healthier people will be in their grieving, the less need to tuck it into places that may pop back out in inopportune ways or times. And the more we can support them and ultimately ourselves, because the reality is, if you are lucky to live long enough, you become the griever.
And more so, the longer that you're able to. What about grief literacy? Earlier you said it's important for me to say that my son died. And that was language that we were always very intentional with as burial stewards, to really name the experience. Where can compassionate companions find the literacy? What does that look like? How do they navigate that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I believe it evolves over time. I think that as we're making funeral arrangements, to say things around your dead husband probably don't go over as well. But I think as we begin to talk to people and they share learning to live, without this loved one, a concept that took time for me to understand, and I still today struggle with, is forever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What does forever mean? I will never see my son again in this life. And never, forever is a very long time. But beginning to introduce this idea of forever. And I say that's important. I have a friend who's a young widow, and she's coming upon this point in her life where the discussion of re-entering the dating scene is coming up, right? And so there's all kinds of feelings associated. I could never love someone as much as I love this one. We were till death do us. He's actually died, right? He has. So the departure has happened. That commitment was not until you're both dead, right? And helping people understand he is never coming back, right? Would he want you, those posing questions that are still very gentle, would he want you to live the last 40 years of your life alone? Is that what he would, if you were him, would you want him to live the last 40 years? Helping them organically begin to see and experience. This is, I know it's been 2 years. There's not just 2 more coming. Ideally, there's 50 more. And so helping them begin to frame that by posing questions. This isn't lectures. This isn't directions. This is gentle re-guidance, restructuring, reframing to help them see the finality of the loss.
And that has to be experiential. I remember catching myself on multiple occasions after my mom died suddenly, where I would think to myself, when my mom's done being dead, I'm going to tell her this. When my mom gets back, I'm going to tell her this. Like the brain doesn't allow, the cellular body doesn't allow that process initially to consider or contemplate the finality. It is through walking intentionally that you can have that experiential understanding. And, oh, okay. She's not going to be done being dead, but I can still be in conversation with her.
That's right.
I can still tell her.
That's right.
There's still a continued bond, but I have to catch up with the finality of that.
That's right. And it is an evolving and life-changing, right? Cognitive reality forever.
And we're always stretching with it, as we're continuing to evolve, which kind of leads me into one of the final things I wanted to digest with you, which was wisdom and meaning. I've companioned those that, we've talked about the evolution, and time moves us there, and our paying attention and our intentionality moves us into deepening our understanding of our grief experience. But I serve those that are reluctant to move into meaning making, because meaning making would justify a death, or meaning making would make it okay, or meaning making would mean that I'm kind of cool with God and really I'm just pissed. But no, not but, and there is a meaning that emerges that's unique to every individual. So I was wondering if we could talk about meaning making and the wisdom, and just how you understand meaning making in the grief process today. How might it have been different in the earlier moments of your grieving?
There is zero question in the beginning. I mean, you are just, none of it makes sense. Even the words, Darius is dead, didn't make, what do you mean? What do you mean? My son was actually the one who told me. He had the monumental task of calling me on this cruise ship to say, Mom, Darius is dead, right? Actually, profoundly, those are the words he used. What do you mean? Right?
Yeah, and to try to catch up with just that, like.
So then it is. Yeah, that's right. So then it is. Well, how? Who said that? How did they measure that? Right. So we get through that, and then you see this body. Even that for me was, well, that it doesn't really look like him, right? They didn't do such a great job. He didn't really look like that. All these ways in your mind that you are, is this real? And then you get to the ashes, and so this is final. Now this is final. And so once you're past, okay, he's not going to call. I can't call him. There's no mom, can you get me out? Mom, can you help? Can you get me out of this? Then the anger starts, right? And so there was listen, God and I spent a lot of time in contentious dialogue, right?
Listen.
Because now the question is, how? Me? I've spent my life healing people. I'm a nurse. We're the most trusted profession year after year because we are damn good people. How could this happen to me? To me.
It's such a betrayal.
How could this happen to him? And the reality is, and maybe uniquely because of my experience of telling dozens, maybe hundreds of people, your person is gone. I too am just human, right? I am no special person. And so I had the unique human experience of losing someone I love, right? Or maybe not so unique human experience of losing someone I love. And so for me, I began to say, this is now real, right? I've gone through these initial phases. This is real. I could not find peace with simply reassembling the existing life around that. I could not find peace with that because Darius matters. He didn't matter. He's not mattered. He matters. His spirit, his legacy matters. And how people pay that forward looks different. There are people who use that experience to help others that they know through creating the dialogue, being that support, being that listening ear. There are others who start foundations and scholarships. And for me, I needed to find a way to make his impact, his life, matter to others who experience this disruptive loss. I had to find a way to fill the space, the silence, the gaps that unintentionally from the people I love were in my healing process. And so the creation, the design of the memory box is all built on how I will make my horribly unanticipated, undesired experience better for those that come behind me. And so if and when I can't make Darius, I can't change what happened for him. I can't make his life longer. What I can do is make the experience of losing the physical presence of someone you love better, accelerate the healing process, offer more comfort along the way for those who come behind me. And if losing him touches one person, 10 people, 100 people, then I have amplified his presence after he's departed the earth. And for me, the meaning in that matches, my passion around that matches the energy that I've had to expend in healing.
So beautifully spoken. The amplification of his presence is so meaningful that it's going to match the love I have for him, is going to match what I offer. And to echo that took time. There was no need to try to make meaning right away. It came on its own, and it came in its own time. And it's one thing that we as companions might invite is we don't need to rush explanations. We don't need to rush understanding why. It'll come. Meaning will come. Just be present to it and allow it to merge.
That's right.
So in the space of spiritual direction, we're attentive to the question. We let the questions guide us. So I'm curious, what questions still remain for you in your grief journey?
Yeah. I haven't reconciled yet what the afterlife is. So it's a question for me. I feel his presence. So this idea that the finality of him being gone, but the intermittent feeling of his presence is just something in my mind I continue to explore and have interest in. I think how he's the person closest to me that I've lost, but certainly if I live long enough, there'll be other close losses. And I wonder how that shows up, how the multiplicity of those shows up for you in your healing process. I've actually met people who have had multiple losses at one time. But I actually intimately do not know many people who've had a succession of losses and healing and losses and healing over time, and what that journey looks like, how I will rebound and show resilience along that, but also how I show up for other people that experience that. My guess is, like most things in life, you learn a little with each loss, but perhaps that's incorrect. I think the last question for me is he as proud of my efforts to keep him alive as I hope he is?
That one got me. Mm-hmm. That one got me as a spiritual director, as a mother. I mean, it's all touching me deeply. But I'm also drawing forward my experience as a medium, where I have sat time and time again with a mother, a husband that's so invested in whether or not their loved one who has passed is okay. What are they witnessing? Are they okay? And simultaneously, I'm connected with a loved one that is so invested in them. Like they're like, I'm fine. I want to talk about you. Mm-hmm. And the one sitting before me that's receiving the reading is like, I'm fine, but I want to talk about you. And how it's just coming from both in that deep investment that we are still so relationally focused, no matter what realm we are in, is so meaningful to me. And yet, even though we have this phenomenon of mediumship available to us, it is a mystery, it is unpredictable. No one knows. What we have a phenomenon. This thing can happen, and it can leave wonderful questions and heal tremendous hurts. But we don't know. We don't know. And to let ourselves be in the question actually furthers our continued search, even in our grief. It continues to soften us. It continues to empty us, and it continues to move us if we can stay in the question. Your questions are so profound. What would you want grieving parents to hear right now from you?
I think love lives on, right? And so we love, our love doesn't change. The way that we can express it, the way that we can care for ourselves while giving it, is what changes. And for me, the greatest honor I can give to my son whose life was cut short is to amplify mine. For 9 months, I lived for both of us. For the rest of my life, I have the responsibility of doing that also.
The imagery of that, to carry your child for 9 months, and to carry your child again in that shared walk that you now have. What would you want the friends or grievers or companions to understand about staying present over time?
The journey's long. The journey's long, but connection matters, presence matters, and it is okay to sometimes not say the right thing, but be in the right place. And so when we love someone, when we care for them, we don't get to exempt out of the hard stuff. And this is really hard. It's really hard. But it's the price of love, right?
I was just going to say. It's what love asks of us. So if grief is a part of this human experience, which it clearly is, and thus it is part of this path towards wholeness. It is part of this path of reaching our human potential, our fullness, our wholeness. What does grief require of us?
Patience, vulnerability. You are not whoever you are. You will be different through the process. So flexibility is very important. And a little bit of resistance. It's hard to be resilient sometimes. But we have to find a way to be committed to ourselves while gracious with ourselves at the same time. So self-compassion matters. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a bad week. It's not okay to have a bad life. And so we have to be able to give ourselves time to not do well, to, I'll call it, have a grief relapse, to have a moment of depression or anxiety. But there are tools, there are resources to support us. We owe it to the ones that we love to live on.
I will keep with me that it's okay to have a bad week, but it's not okay to have a bad life. Even in the hardest moments of being human, we can still seek.
That's right. That's right.
Kelly, I'm so touched and moved. I'm moved that my dear friend, when I was 15 years old, is sitting before me. I am moved to witness the wisdom and profundity that you have found and that you are sharing with others. And I know that our listeners will be just as touched. Where can they find you?
We are online at thememorybox.co, and on social media at thememorybox_official on Facebook, thememorybox.official on Instagram. So lots of messages of hope and healing and ways for us to show up for those that we love. And equally, I am thankful for you and want to thank you for this work that you are doing to help people facing all types of questions and intersection between who I am and who I want to be. In particular, the work you're doing in the grief space, it matters. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.